The world is complex, the Bible is complex. Human existence is a tangled ball of experience, perception, and understanding. Ravel is a puzzling word, denoting both a tangling and untangling. This podcast attempts to hold honest conversations in good faith. Some ideas expressed in this podcast will be challenging. Others will be obvious. When a PhD in biblical interpretation and a habitually podcasting man-child discuss matters of society, scripture, and scandal, you get Ravel.
Hey everybody, you are listening to Ravel, and it's me, your best buddy Basil. And with me, as always, he's got a hankering for the harvest. He's a tryptophan fanatic. And the lead guitarist for the Thankful Bread, it's Dr. Christopher Ryan Gates.
Wow.
Well, you're hype man.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do you feel hyped?
Get it? Yeah, I do actually. That was pretty good.
Thanks.
You're a you're a good hype man. Are you all right? You almost died before we got on here.
I'm very sick, and I've been very sick for a long time, and I don't understand it. I don't know why, and I don't know how.
Yeah.
You could probably tell just the sound of my general well-being is a little bit on the lower end, the lower end of the human possibilities, but I'm pushing through. I'm feeling good. No,
good.
Let me rephrase that. I'm not feeling good, but I am pushing through.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord. It's all about the perspective, right? What you do with it.
Sure. It's also like, don't really have a choice. I was sick for like 3 weeks. Then I had about a week in there where I felt okay. And now it's been like another 3 weeks of being sick. You know, they're talking about, you've heard the PR for it, right? The triple-demic. We're in the triple-demic.
No.
Oh, yeah, watch out, Chris. You got the flu, you got the COVID, and now you got RSV, which is not something that I had ever heard of until I had someone tell me I probably had RSV, which is a weird thing for adults to get. So I think it's sort of another layer on the sort of man-child mythos that I've built around myself is I think I get viruses that are for children. RSV. Have you heard of this one? You have a small child now.
I've heard of RSV. Yes, yes. I didn't know there was a triple sickness. It's like the Triple Crown.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Triple Crown. It's like
Triple Crown of being sick.
Pulling a hat trick in hockey, I believe. There's also. They've been calling it in the underground sort of punk rock community. They've been calling it the tic-tac-toe. So It's kind of like a cool name for it.
Okay.
Yeah, for adults who get the triple-demic that includes a baby virus called RSV. But yeah, you know, that's what I get for being such a wild man.
Have you confirmed that you have any of those three, or is this all just speculation?
No, this is all speculation. I've taken I've taken plenty of COVID tests, and none of them say that I have that. So I think I'm sort of living on the edge. I'm exploring the boundaries of what having a sort of minorly inconvenient sickness can mean to any human being, but especially when I'm sort of responsible for recording podcasts 4 days out of the week. It makes it a little difficult.
Yeah, it can.
I may be developing some sort of physical, what's the word? Some sort of physical dependence on a mixture of Dayquil and nasal sprays.
Oh my gosh.
And Red Bulls. But enough about me, Chris. We're more interested about you. By now, the listeners have they've thoroughly enjoyed your thread talk from last week. How do you feel about that?
It was fun. It was a little bit, uncharted territory there. I'm spreading my little baby doctor wings and my little baby podcaster wings and just ventured out into the unknown all on my own. So
that's great.
Yeah, that was fun.
It's a good practice.
Yeah.
Makes you
Should
really
we talk
appreciate
about
having a co-host, doesn't it?
It does. It does indeed. I mean, I didn't actually. What made me appreciate having a co-host was when you weren't gone for a whole month without saying anything.
Yeah, that's
Should
true.
we talk about that? Should we tell people?
Yeah, you didn't. For some reason, you weren't put on the newsletter. I thought we had talked about this already, but was this not? Was this not on a podcast episode that we talked about this?
I don't know how it could have been. There was your mysterious disappearance out to Burning Man, which rolled over into a couple of weeks. We came back, gave a sincere apology to everybody after that one, and then again. There was your jet setting around the world. That
I'm not.
This is the first time we're recording you and I together in about a month. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. Because of the lifestyle that I live, which is now almost entirely disconnected from polite society and almost entirely making a living on the internet, it's, I think, coming out of the sort of depths of the pandemic years, I kind of forgot that I need to tell people when I'm disappearing or something. I don't actually even know. I don't know if whatever lesson I'm supposed to have learned, I'm not even sure if I've identified it yet, but I do know that I did it incorrectly. So for that, I apologize. But it has sort of activated some backup infrastructure that we are now creating, both for this show and just sort of my life in general. And it doesn't help that throughout the whole, basically the entire month that I disappeared from this show, I've also been extremely sick. So I don't know, I do apologize, first of all, to you, Christopher, Dr. Christopher.
Yeah, we already
listeners.
Water under the bridge. Yeah.
Yes, well, of course. But, the listeners need to hear that too, because sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, sometimes people become sort of defensive for their favorite podcaster. And you, being their favorite podcaster, they might hold some sort of resentment to the way that the past month and a half has gone down. But you and I, we have found a way through. We have worked out our relational mishaps. But with that, it gave an excellent opportunity for you to explore some solo podcasting, which is a terrifying thing to do. I've only done it a couple times and I've not sort of made a habit out of it. But I think you did a wonderful job, Chris.
Oh, well, thank you. I didn't know about it until I was kind of, second guessing myself. And you said, you're a professor, you stand up and talk for hours at a time, all the time. And I thought, oh, you're right. I do that. So, I gave it a shot, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how the response is. But at the very least, I just figured this way, we will have something to offer folks, in an instance where we find ourselves in a pinch again. So, I'm excited about that. That's fun. That's cool.
Yes, and I'm also excited to announce that we have done some foreplanning, and hopefully, if our plans go well, we'll have the next couple months of episodes planned ahead of time, recorded ahead of time, and really get to dig in Ravel style moving into the new year. So we're excited for that.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant to make any firm promises, but I will let you know that is what we're working on, folks.
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah.
People are going to really like it. So,
but today is an exciting opportunity, Dr. Chris, because coming up, we have another beloved American holiday, and that is Thanksgiving. And we are trying to figure out if you had talked about this on the show or not. I think you did, but we don't know yet. This will either surprise listeners or remind them of when you said this. But Thanksgiving has a very special place in your heart, does it not?
It does. I mean, it's special and, whatever, for a bunch of reasons that it's hard to explain. The same reason that various things, nostalgic things and holidays are special for a lot of people. But to put it simply, I mean, it's unquestionably my favorite holiday. It is the best holiday on the holiday calendar, and I'll argue anybody about that. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely gonna need to like lay out your full case for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're prepared to do that.
I am. Yeah.
Okay.
I am. So,
all right.
This is how, the reason that I understand it to be the best holiday ever, because when you consider, what is really important, and it's like when you get to Christmas, right? Which usually Christmas is going to be the one that people are going to say, well, that's the best. Obviously, Christmas is the best. Christmas is king. We talked about this in the Christmas episode, I believe. Go back and listen to it. Yeah, right. And the birth of Jesus and all this other stuff. But the thing with Christmas is that every year we have to be reminded to look past all of these other things that are going on, right? You have to be reminded actually of what Christmas is even about, because so much other stuff is continually getting in the way. So with Christmas, it's almost like you have to try really hard to appreciate Christmas for what it really is. And then especially like in my family, I'm one of 4 children. And then, between me and my 2 brothers and my sister, there are now essentially 11 grandchildren to my parents, of the nieces, nephews, and children, 11. That's on my side. So we're talking about between my parents, the 4 of us kids, and then the other 11, we're at like 17 people, right? And like immediate family, it's just assumed you got to buy presents for. So there's 17 right there. Then you go over to my wife's family. She's got her mom, her dad, and she's one of 9 children. So that's 11. And then there's 4, now 5 on that side. So that's another 16. So we're at 17 and 16. You got to buy presents for all these people. You got to be worried about all of this stuff. It just starts to become overwhelming. And I just think to myself, it's not even worth all of the hassle, all of the hustle and the bustle, all the stuff you have to be continually reminded of. You got to do all of this, whatever, putting up trees and doing all this lights and all this parties and ugly sweaters and all. It can be fun, but it also can be extremely exhausting. You know what's wonderful about Thanksgiving? All you have to do is make an incredible meal, invite over all of the people who you love, sit down, eat that meal. And then you usually do this. So my Thanksgiving has started off pretty much for my entire life, every Thanksgiving that I can remember, with the television on in the family living room, wherever that happens to be. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade is going on. What's really wonderful is if you want the feel of Christmas, you're getting the feel of Christmas with the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, because it's cold. You're watching these people in New York. We're down here in sunny Florida all the time, so we get to see all these people out in the frigid cold, different floats and stuff. It's all Christmas themed. We got Christmas music coming, and then of course at the end, the fat man himself, Santa Claus, shows up at the end, and it feels almost like Christmas, except you don't have all of the stuff to go along with it. So you're getting a taste of Christmas, and then when that's over, the whole time, by the way, usually my mother or, my sister helps sometimes too, and whoever else might be helping, cooking in the house, wonderful smells of turkey, stuffing, all of the stuff that goes along with it. And then my mom, she's a professional baker. Shout out to my mom, Michelle Gates, Little H&B Bakery. She makes incredible stuff. Go check her out. She makes all of her pies from scratch. So she will make homemade pie crust, right? That she's going to put, her pecan pie, her pumpkin pie, her apple pie, her blueberry pie, all of the different pies. And she makes the pie crust from scratch. Well, in the family tradition, over time, she'd have every once in a while some pie crust left over. She made 10, 15 pies sometimes, and a little bit left over. So then she rolls that out real thin, puts it into the oven and bakes it and cuts it into these little square shapes. She actually cuts it before she bakes it, so they come out in these little pie crust squares. And she'll always serve those like in the morning. So you're eating pie crust, then eventually jams and honeys and things like that came out. And it's just incredible, and I love it. And you just get to lay there with your favorite people, snuggle up on the couch, down on the floor, watch some crazy floats. Your mom comes by, brings you a glass of milk with some pie crust. All the kids are there. You're hanging out. There's no expectation on anybody to do anything. You're just there to hang out and enjoy each other's company. Then you get to eat a bunch of incredible food. You sit around, you just get fat on turkey and stuffing and mashed potatoes and gravy. And my mother, of course, makes, all of this stuff from scratch. She's also not just an incredible baker, but she's an incredible cook. All the best food that you could ever possibly want. You sit there, you get fat, you go back, sit on the couch again, take a nap. You wake up, there's football on. I mean, what else could possibly go right in this day for you? Nothing could go right. There's no expectation. There's no pressure. You just get to hang out and enjoy your family. And then, of course, the reason that you're doing all of this, it's Thanksgiving. We understand why we're doing it. We're having hearts of gratitude. We're enjoying our family. We're enjoying this food. Football, oh my gosh, it's wonderful. How could anything be any better than Thanksgiving?
You're obviously very passionate. I'll give you that. You're very passionate. You've got a lot of wonderful reasons to love Thanksgiving. I will say, I do like the combination of reasons to like Thanksgiving, not only of what is extant, but what is not extant. The lack of expectation. I could see that being a very rewarding part of Thanksgiving. I did notice, Dr. Chris, that the phrase "get fat" was repeated about 5 different times. In different contexts, lots of opportunities to get fat during Thanksgiving, which, look, I'm not even complaining. I'm just noticing the passion that is very obviously genuine. I will say one thing is missing from Thanksgiving that Christmas does have. And, I don't know, Chris, it might be the birth of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean, that's a thing that's not there. That's for sure.
Yeah. Now, of course, as we've explored previously, and I'm sure we will explore more in the future, that even though we celebrate the birth of Christ during Christmas, I guess we could celebrate the birth of Christ any day, including Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I suppose, yeah, so you can make that. You can make that.
I mean, what are you most thankful for?
Mm-hmm.
The birth of Jesus, or even his death, burial, resurrection. So you get to roll Christmas and Easter into Thanksgiving. You get to be thankful for those things. You get it's all inclusive. It's for everybody all the time.
You make a very strong case. I will say, I have significantly less relatives than you, so this sort of pile of family appreciation is much thinner over on my side. However, the appreciation is still there. Now, one thing about Thanksgiving, and I don't want to, me, Dr. Chris, I'm not here to burst anybody's bubble.
Oh, yeah, sure you are.
But like Christmas, there is some questionable mythology, some questionable lore put on the holiday. Perhaps there's some sort of role being played by the corporate overlords of the American holiday schedule. Perhaps it has something to do with maintaining some sort of, there's sort of a hidden thread, a hidden vein of patriotism that is sort of added into the Thanksgiving holiday that is not so apparent in Christmas. Do you know of which I speak?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about just the fact that generally in Thanksgiving the lure as it goes is you have these sort of people who were escaping religious persecution, right? Coming over here.
I'm talking about the Pilgrims, baby. Talking about the Pilgrims, the stars of the show, the stars of the Thanksgiving show. Now, of course, the turkey's the real star. Fun fact, Benjamin Franklin allegedly wanted the turkey to be the national bird of the United States. However, I've recently read a noble bird, a noble fowl. Although I've read some things recently that suggest that that's kind of apocryphal, but we'll go with it. We'll go with it as part of the lore of Thanksgiving, and of course the Pilgrims. Where, as we're taught from a very young age in this country, were fleeing from England to escape religious persecution and seek out the religious freedom that is so core to the American mythos. We enjoy our religious freedom around here. But I don't think that it comes as a surprise to you, Dr. Chris, that maybe that was maybe that story may have been just tweaked a little bit, or maybe some core details left out in the kindergarten class. So, if I may, Dr. Chris, I mean, it's obvious that the mythos of Thanksgiving is not the most important part for you, so I don't think I'm going to ruin Thanksgiving for anybody. Not like we so savagely ruined Christmas for everybody in the past couple years, the past year. But we're taught that the Pilgrims, they came over from England for religious freedom, and turns out that there's some pretty reliable sources that are just starting to kind of make their way into the mainstream, that the Pilgrims didn't actually come from England. Okay. Now, is that the most important part? No. But I think it's time everybody knows the truth about these Pilgrims. Okay? These Pilgrims, they were separatists. They didn't like how the Church of England, the Anglican Church, was doing business. And so they did flee. They did flee for religious freedom. And you know where they went? They went to Holland, Chris. They found religious freedom in Holland. in 1608 or something like that. And they were able to worship God in their own way in Holland. Now, do I know literally anything about Holland? Absolutely not. But I have learned that apparently in the 1600s, they were pretty loosey-goosey when it comes to, the way that they allowed people to worship. And the Pilgrims, they spent a few years in Holland, like 11 years or something. And now why? How did they get from Holland to the United States, Chris?
Well, the Mayflower?
There's a couple different, there's people are arguing a little bit back and forth. Some people place more weight on one reason or another, but the facts of the matter is there's a few reasons. Number one, Holland in 1620 or whatever was not doing so great economically. Not a lot of jobs for some religious persecution survivors in Holland. So economically, Holland became a little bit unviable. And by this time, they'd been there for, a decade, maybe a little bit more than a decade, the Pilgrims, that is. And their children, the little Pilgrim children, they started speaking Dutch. And they started growing up as Dutchmen. And those English Pilgrims, they did not appreciate their children being considered Dutchmen, despite fleeing from England for their religious freedoms. They wanted their children to be Englishmen, proper, proud Englishmen, not Dutchmen. And so there's a little bit of, hey, I'm not going to put a label on it, but they didn't apparently, as much as the freedom they enjoyed in Holland, they didn't care so much as being considered Dutchmen. Is that a problematic in 2022? I don't know. But take that and stuff it in your turkey, Chris. And so they wanted to maintain their identity as Englishmen. And whereas they weren't allowed to go back to England, it was English investment money. The English company, the Merchant Adventurers, paid the bills for the Pilgrims to leave Holland and head on over to the New World. The Pilgrims signed a contract where they had to work for the English Merchant Adventurers for 7 years for paying the bills to get the Mayflower over there. And the rest is history. Really, really revisionist history. But, the Pilgrims, it was such an important sort of patriotic aspect to the whole Thanksgiving story. Now, it kind of feels like the patriotism of the story didn't quite stick. Maybe how some curriculum writers in the 20th century wish that it would have stuck. But you gotta admit, not a whole lot of patriotic nonsense going on in Christmas. Nobody's saying that Jesus was born in Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh.
Does any of this make any sense to you?
Can any of that be verified?
Yeah, it's pretty simple Google searches. Well, I had to read about 6 or 7 different articles to paste together this version of the story. There's definitely different parts of this story that will be weighted, differently depending on the source. Believe it or not, NASA, on the NASA website, used this alternate telling of the Thanksgiving history to show off some cool satellite images that they took. It's much more complicated than I made it, but you get the point. Yeah. But does that mean anything to you? Have I changed your mind?
Well, I have a couple points of consideration that you bring up. One, I suppose I would be a little bit skeptical about that take, but I'm skeptical about everything. And, this really comes up like when you hear people talking about Christopher Columbus, and
Yeah.
we Christopher Columbus, we were always told was a hero, and then at some point or another he became a villain, and then there are still people who say no, he actually was a hero. And all of this stuff that you've heard is a lie. And you have people, kind of going back and forth. And we were talking a little bit before the show, even you were saying that this kind of updated version of the Thanksgiving narrative there, the first Thanksgiving, has even been contested from time to time. So I very much appreciate that I have, a new angle to look at it from. To be perfectly honest with you, I very seldom think about the Pilgrims on Thanksgiving. But when I do think about them, one of the things I think about is those shoes that they're always pictured with. And you know what I've always thought in the back of my mind? Those look like Dutch shoes. Those look like those big wooden shoes with the big buckle in the strap, and not the straight up ones that are just carved out of the wood. There's a special name for those. I don't know what it is, but
I mean, they're very
have
Dutch
a very
looking folks. Those Pilgrims.
Yeah, which was always interesting. So when you said it, I was like, I mean, even in the cartoons that people make of them, which is interesting to think about. I mean, it's not like we have any pictures of the first Thanksgiving, so how do we even know what these people actually looked like? And then it brings up the whole issue of like white Jesus, and like, what did Jesus actually look like? How does anybody know any of this stuff? So I take it all with a grain of salt, but you have given me just more to be thankful for. I'll say it like that. You've not ruined my Thanksgiving at all.
Okay. Good. Now, do you know when the date or the chosen time of Thanksgiving, what is it? The last Thursday of November is Thanksgiving, right?
Second to last, isn't it?
Second to last, right? It's second to last now. But did you know that Thanksgiving...
Oh, no, wait, it is the last. It has to be the last.
I think it's the last, right.
Second to last is something else. It is the last, yes.
Yeah. Pretty much every president up until Abraham Lincoln, we're talking 1863, Thanksgiving had just sort of been practiced willy-nilly whenever the president said so. Did you know this?
I did, actually, yeah. I did know that
willy-nilly. There's, I mean, I don't know. It's fine. Willy-nilly's fine. Nothing wrong with willy-nilly. But yes, there's a long history of changing the date of official Thanksgiving. 1789, George Washington said it at one point. 1863, Abraham Lincoln changed it. A few years later, 1870, Congress followed suit by passing legislation making Thanksgiving along with good. Did you know that Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Thanksgiving and Independence Day were not official national holidays until 1870?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, now you know. Thanks, Congress of 1870. Anyways.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm going with this, but the House eventually passed Missioner's Bill on October 6th, 1941, and President Roosevelt signed it into law in late December to take effect the following year. Thanksgiving was decided, finally written into law, 1941. Take that, Christmas.
That's 1941. I'll remember that. Adding that one to the bank. I did know that it was not floating, but more than floating. The floating holidays, whatever, don't have a particular date on the calendar. But yeah, Thanksgiving, I know, has had a tumultuous time in being when it would be celebrated and recognized. So 1941, good to know. I was thinking, I had one time, I was actually in Greece for Thanksgiving one year. I got to go with the seminary to Greece, and I was there for Thanksgiving. And we were at this hotel, obviously, maybe in Greece. That's where we were staying, and our dinner there that night. These wonderful people who owned the hotel. It was a really nice hotel. Knew that we were Americans and that it was Thanksgiving back in America, and we were over there in Greece. And of course, in Greece, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but they wanted to, give us a Thanksgiving dinner while we were there in Greece. And it was this really, yeah, it was very nice of them. And it was this really nice, when I traveled with the seminary, a couple different places, they get great deals somehow, and you stay in just the nicest restaurants or hotels with the nicest restaurants in all these places. But they brought us for turkey. It was like sliced deli turkey.
Ooh, yummy. Yummy.
They served us, just on a plate or whatever. And I was like, it was so thoughtful, but it was not quite what I was looking for.
They didn't quite slave over a giant bird for hours and hours to help make you feel at home. Well,
no, not at all.
How would they even know that that's what you're supposed to do? It's not like it's sort of, I don't know, immortalized in American pop culture and television and movies and spread around the world by America's #1 export, American culture, blue jeans and Thanksgiving Day turkey.
I mean, it seemed, like it was just the best they could do. Like some guy went into the kitchen and said, "There's a bunch of Americans here. Do we have any turkey?" And they pulled out some cold cuts. But anyway, nice, so that was a fun Thanksgiving memory.
To get back to the main important thing about Thanksgiving, which you did a wonderful job of expressing and illustrating in your family's traditions and the experience of Thanksgiving in your household, which I find funny because, we're told that it's Thanksgiving because the Pilgrims had made friends with the Indians and the Indians had taught them how to grow corn, and we are very thankful for surviving, a harsh winter or something in the New World. And indeed, the Pilgrims did indeed suffer major losses of life that first year landing in the New World. And they were grateful for being alive. But even without that sort of mythos of the holiday, the great thing about Thanksgiving is you can be thankful for, well, anything. And, I think, like you said, the opportunity, or maybe not even the opportunity, the government-mandated day to take a second and just consider the abstract idea of thankfulness, which has resulted in many sort of awkward moments at the dinner table across the country of people, the family going around the table and everybody has to say something they're grateful for. And everybody is, cringes at the thought that it's their turn to say something gushy about being grateful. But it is, it is a sort of, it carries heavy spiritual significance, giving thanks.
Yeah.
Does it not, Chris?
Yeah. It absolutely does. It's a theme, that is repeated all throughout Scripture. I mean, you see the exhortation of the people of God to have hearts of gratitude basically everywhere you look in Scripture, and particularly, throughout the New Testament. Paul talks a lot about it, and it's really interesting to consider Paul and to consider his life, to consider his ministry. When you read through, Second Corinthians in particular, he kind of talks specifically about all of these hardships he's faced, imprisonments and beatings and persecution and all the things that have come along, being stoned and everything. The man lived an incredibly difficult life. And in the midst of all of it, he's talking about having, a perpetual heart of gratitude towards the Lord. And I had an experience one time where I was spending some time in prayer and fasting, and it was a good amount of time. And I was hoping for, anybody who's ever spent time in prayer and fasting, you hope for these kind of breakthroughs. You hope for at the end of it or somewhere in the middle, the Lord's going to shine a light down from heaven. He's going to reveal some truth that's going to change your whole world. And I remember I was actually in New Orleans at seminary during this particular fast, and I was sitting in a chapel service, and I think I was coming towards the end of my allotted time, and I was praying and asking the Lord, like, what am I learning here? What message do you have for me? And I remember that he just said, you need to be more thankful. And I was like, that's so lame. Like, what a terrible, I've been, fasting and praying and seeking the Lord. And it rang through clear. Like this was a word from God for me. And I was like, what? Like, that's so, it seemed so anticlimactic, but it really just kind of rested on me, and I had time to think and to continue to pray about it, and then to, assess my life and look at, the condition and the posture of my heart. And one of the things that I kind of discovered was that a thankful heart, a heart that is filled with gratitude, is one that is diametrically opposed to, if you will, a prideful heart. Gratitude is synonymous with humility, and humility is a characteristic that God requires of all of his children. We should all exhibit humility, and it is in the times when we are humble, when we are stripped away of ourselves and our pride, that we can be the most thankful. And I had, been kind of thinking through that, and even, have been here recently again, just kind of that conflict between what an entitled heart looks like, and what a grateful heart looks like, and how you have pride on the one side and how you have humility on the other side. And it is gratitude. It is one of these virtues. It's something that we have to practice as Christians, and it's something, Paul in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, he says to give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. That we are supposed to be giving thanks in every single circumstance, which means that we have to be considering God above all before ourselves, because when we start thinking about ourselves, it's only when we start thinking about ourselves that we have a heart that is not grateful, that we have a heart that is not thanking God for what he's doing in our lives. And I have a lot more that I could say about that, but just to kind of open that part of the discussion there, what do you think about that? What do you think about thankfulness and humility being synonymous? And what was the entitlement, on the other side of it?
Yeah, that's an interesting string of connections. I mean, I think it does sort of set my mind wandering down a path of contemplating humility and in the nature of humility. When I think of thankfulness, it's almost like you can't be thankful or practice thankfulness without the sort of similarly abstract notion of remembrance. You're remembering something. You're almost placing your mind back to a moment when you received something. And with that, you're almost transporting yourself back to before the moment you received something, or an act was changed your status. If you can think of salvation, or you can think of, if you're thankful for even a job, what you're doing is you are transporting your mind. You're remembering what it was before the time that you're thankful for, and then now the time after. It's this sort of act of replacing yourself in the act of receiving, in sort of a historical context. And in a way, in the way that sort of our mind works, it's almost like reliving the receiving of a gift. If we're talking about, we could even talk about something like salvation. If you're thankful for salvation, it's a process of, what was I before that gift? What was I after that gift? And I think in sort of a trippy way, if I'm going to get trippy about it, it's almost like reliving the moment of receiving a gift. And I think that's something that really sort of separates human beings from a lot of other creatures, is, our ability to recall the narrative of our lives. And in thankfulness, it really is a call to re-experience the good things in our lives, to re-experience, to remember what life was before a gift, remember what it felt like to receive the gift, and then be thankful in the sort of aftermath of that gift, and how it improved our lives. I think it can really be a sort of a trippy way of transporting oneself sort of in time, and is a very, in a way, it's sort of very human experience. Like, as far as we know, other animals don't necessarily sit there and like think about things in the past, or like sit and consider what they're grateful for. And in its sort of human uniqueness, it's almost another thing to be grateful for, the specialness of human beings and our opportunity to sort of commune or recommune with God. And thankfulness is like a direct doorway opening up to sort of a real, it's almost a divine experience. To remember, to be thankful, to be grateful, is to like relive a wonderful thing that happened to us in the past. Does that trip you out too much?
No, that's a really interesting take on it. I very much appreciate that insight. I think that's really cool. However, I was thinking about a couple different things that I'd kind of like to hear you comment on. Give a little not pushback, but a little different perspective here. Where one, when you're talking about it as a form of remembrance, I think that's cool. I hadn't thought about it like that before. Kind of reliving, going back to something, revisiting it, and having that heart of gratitude. But it brought up 2 points for me. One, I think there's we should also practice being thankful in the moment, right? So as the thing is happening, like the thing that's good, that we're feeling thankful for it. But then there's also the idea that some things are happening to us at times that people are going to say aren't good. And I think that is why Paul gives that exhortation there that we read out of 1 Thessalonians, that we are to give thanks in all circumstances. So even for the things that we would normally think, well, this is bad. And I have a quote here from C.S. Lewis, which I think kind of might help to give a little insight into this. But he says that we ought to give thanks for all fortune. If it is good, because it is good. If it is bad, because it works in us patience, humility, and the contempt of this world, and the hope of our eternal country. And, basically what he's saying is you give thanks for the things that are good, the things that it's easy to give thanks for. Oh, wow, I got a promotion. Oh, wow, I have a newborn son. Oh, wow, things are going well in my home and in the church. Like, those are the things that are easy to give thanks for. But I was actually just thinking about this here recently. There's a David Crowder song. I've been listening to his album Milk and Honey recently. It's really good. I think it's his most recent one. And there's a song called Hallelujah for a Broken Heart. You guys can go listen to that if you want to. And I don't remember specifically the line, but he says in it that every heartache, every hurt that we go through in our lives is actually just a tool that pushes us further into fellowship with God. And that's kind of what C.S. Lewis, I think, is getting at in this quote. For the good things, it's easy to thank God for his grace and mercy in our lives and his provision and all of those that our hearts are naturally inclined to, should be, and most often are naturally inclined to respond to gifts and goodness with gratitude. It is those other areas, though, where it becomes a struggle. And then it's, how do I give thanks in every circumstance? How do I, when it feels like my world is falling apart, when my life is falling apart, my marriage, my finances, how do I have a grateful heart in the midst of hardship and difficulty? And that really, I think, is probably where people struggle with more often. And what David Crowder says, what C.S. Lewis says, what I have found in my life continually is that it causes, and as C.S. Lewis says, a contempt in our hearts for this world, that we actually in our hearts begin to despise this world and long even more for what awaits us in heaven. And that can also foster gratitude, that we begin to thank God for the fellowship of his suffering in looking forward to. And then I suppose here's a little mind trip for you too, that you were talking about gratitude being kind of a remembrance, something that we're looking back on. It also can be something that takes place immediately in the current reality we're living in, but there's a component of it that extends into the future too, and into our eternal kind of destiny, that we are thankful and grateful for what is to come. We have been talking here in church. We're going through the Gospel of John, and we were talking about the death of Lazarus. We were just in John chapter 11. Incredible passage. And Jesus says, when he gets the news that Lazarus is sick, he says, this illness will not end in death. But then, of course, Lazarus dies. The point, obviously, that Jesus is making is, yes, he's going to die, but that's not the end. And the encouragement that I gave to the congregation here is that the Christian life, we are continually passing through death, but death is not the destination. Darkness is not the destination. Despair is not the destination. David in Psalm 23, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. This is not the place I'm calling my home. These are not the green pastures that God is leading me to. This is a place that I am passing through. And because I know what awaits me on the other side, my heart can be grateful. I can have a heart of gratitude and thanksgiving in the midst even of this suffering, because I know what's coming in the future. So I think that's pretty interesting. It's all just kind of coming together now to be thankful for a remembrance, like you said, a past sort of element, a present one, and then even a future one. Look at that.
Yeah. Well, in the sort of, I guess, melding of our two different takes on the conversation about thankfulness, it occurs to me what another way to think about thankfulness in the moment. Now, thankfulness in the moment, no matter who you are, does require an understanding about life and sort of the ongoing nature of consciousness. Like, you kind of have to remember you will be alive in the future, and things will be better someday in some respect. I mean, of course, we can rely on the promises given to us to keep that in mind in the moment. But even in sort of the abstract sense, it feels like one way of thinking about thankfulness in the moment, even before you've had a chance to experience the good that can come out of any bad situation. Choosing a moment to be thankful about the present. It's almost kind of like an act of, it's almost like creating a checkpoint in a way. If in a moment where things aren't going so well, you can stop and be thankful through all things, it's almost like it creates a checkpoint that makes it easier to think back. Again, we're kind of dealing with some like time travel ideas here, but if you create a moment of thankfulness in the midst of something that to an outside observer would be, look like something not to be thankful for. But being thankful in the moment, sort of creating a checkpoint that you can makes it easier to refer back to that moment. Again, down the line where you've come out of that bad situation. First of all, thankfulness in the moment just makes it easier to deal with the crushing weight of misfortune that happens during a life. But also, it's kind of like putting a bookmark in a book. It makes it easier to go back and, like I kind of mentioned, replace yourself in that moment, now knowing that promises are kept, or that it wasn't the thing that ultimately broke you entirely, or later on you're able to piece together why being thankful in that moment was warranted. It's almost a declaration of victory in a long run. You can declare thankfulness in the moment because later on, when that thing wasn't the end of all things good, when sometimes it can feel that way, different times in life can simply be so overwhelmingly grievous that you just can't imagine any good coming after that. And to put a stake in the ground and claim faithfulness in what seems like an ultimate loss in the moment is sort of like declaring victory over that moment in the long run, and leaving a checkpoint that you can refer back to and reaffirm the promise that you stood in the moment, and sort of making it easier. I mean, and it's kind of like any spiritual practice. The more you do it, the more you live through the benefits of such a thing. And when you experience the benefits of putting that stake in the ground, planting the flag of thankfulness in the midst of unfortunate events, kind of creates a habit or a momentum of thankfulness and victory over any insurmountably sort of moment of grieving in your life, or discomfort or something like that. It's got a strange preparatory, a preparation for future victory that is very powerful. And I don't even think I've thought about it this way until, of course, we're recording our trippy podcast, bro.
Yeah. I really appreciate that. That perspective there of Thanksgiving, of gratitude being a form of victory. It is a way in which we are triumphant in every situation as believers. That if we, truly believe that God is causing all things to work together for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose, then that means that no matter what you are going through, God is using it for good. And yes, the way that you rob any kind of victory from the enemy, any win, however momentary that the enemy might have, is to declare the victory of God in that, and to give Him thanks for the battle that He's won, even though you're not on the other side of it yet. And yeah, I think that what you were saying, the more we practice that, the easier it becomes. I've had some really, really intense situations going on at the church here, and a number of different family situations, and it just makes it a whole lot. You want to get up there and give this, message about just suck it up and thank God, and everything's going to be okay. But when a family is in the middle of crisis, it is a lot harder for people to press into that. But the truth of the situation still is that God is victorious in the end, that He is handing that victory. He's extending that to you. And like you said, the more that we walk in that, the more that we practice living in that reality, then the easier it becomes, no matter what circumstance we're facing. And makes me a little scared sometimes to think that, when you go through one, maybe this is just a warm-up for the big one, that it's like you feel like you've gained a victory, and look at my thankful heart here when this tragedy's happened. But really, I'm just preparing myself to be thankful for the even greater tragedy. And I shudder to think at what some of those things might be. And there again, you just can't. It's easy to be very cavalier about saying we should be thankful in all circumstances until you're actually the one walking through, the loss of a spouse or a child, or, a dream that's disintegrated in your hands or something like that. But nonetheless, the truth of the situation is that we are instructed to give thanks to God in every situation. And yeah, I just love how you put it, that is it's a victory. It's a way to win in all those different scenarios. So sounds like a pretty awesome holiday to me.
Yeah, and it's a way to yeah, I guess you're right, Chris. I guess you're right. Yeah, a way to win in a way that transcends the sort of earthly definition of victory, which makes it even that much more powerful. Okay, Chris, I guess Thanksgiving's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what an additionally sort of powerful way to think about it when it is sort of in the calendar of your country, in the calendar of your nation, when every national holiday abiding individual can at least once a year try to practice such a powerful spiritual concept on the same day. I guess that has some value.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just compelled now. I'm thinking about it, and it's like I don't want to put this on anybody, but I think my family has only done the let's all go around and say something we're thankful for. I think we've only done that a couple times. It's a little awkward. I think one year we did it. Everybody wrote down their answers. And then we read them aloud. We pulled them from a hat, and then we were all trying to guess who said what, which was that was really fun. That was a fun one. But if I'm just thinking about it right now, and in light of the discussion that we just had, I'm thinking, man, it's easy and even expected for us, to on Thanksgiving, and whether you're sharing it with your family or you're just thinking it in your heart, the things that you're thankful for. Man, I'm so thankful for this home that we have. I'm thankful for all this food. Man, God, you've met all of our needs, all of that. But man, I wonder what it would look like if we started to say, God, I thank you for that tragedy that befell our family this year. I thank you for that hardship, that we had to suffer. And you could really trip your family out. Everybody's going around and saying what they're thankful for. I'm thankful for each one of you. My heart is so thankful. I'm thankful for this home. I'm thankful for Aunt Susie for preparing this wonderful dinner. And then you just come out
I'm
with...
thankful for that debilitating tax audit that I had this year. Thank you, Lord, for the IRS.
But there is, it would be a good exercise, because what is there to be thankful for there? What is the Lord trying to do? What's he trying to teach you? What is he trying to work out in your heart? And you could, what a powerful testimony. You could share that with your family, because the Lord was teaching me in the midst of all of that, patience and, how to endure suffering, whatever it might be.
That's a good way to make sure, if you're one of those families where they make you go around the table and everybody say what you're grateful for, just, that'll definitely have your mom or your dad or whoever questioning whether they want to ask you what you're grateful for next year, if you keep bringing up sort of the most horrific experiences that year held for you. That sounds like that tradition will be sort of laid to the wayside sooner rather than later. So there you go. Some good family holiday tips from
Practical
Ravel,
advice.
Your favorite podcast. All right, Chris. Well, is there anything else you wanted to dig into before we let everybody go eat their turkey?
I want to dig into a giant bowl of mashed potatoes.
Soon.
That count?
We will be putting this out the week before, or the week of Thanksgiving. So, somebody listening to this might still have a few days. But maybe this gave them, there's still time. That's the wonderful part about this podcast coming out on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, is there's still time to implement our strategy of thinking up the most horrific things to be grateful for, and really scaring your family into putting away that tradition, or inspiring. You can conspire beforehand, get your siblings, get your spouse, get everybody to think of the most horrific things to be grateful for. And you know what? If you're looking for a way to make Thanksgiving more exciting, that is one way to do it. And make sure to let us know how it goes. You can email us. Make sure to set up your iPhone. And take a little voice recording of your of what you're grateful for. You telling your family the sort of horrific things going on in your life that you stand in victory over. And maybe that would make for a fun post-Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah, like Jimmy Fallon's Kimmel when the parents give away all of the Easter candy or Halloween candy. Look at me. We could have Ravelers sharing their worst experience. But honestly, though, really, it is kind of funny. But I mean, what a powerful testimony too. Like, if you took it seriously, if you weren't just trying to shock your family, and you could really say, this horrible thing happened, but I've actually come to be grateful for.
Start a conversation
through it.
You'll sound like the most spiritual person around the table.
Without question. Without question.
You're really trying to look like the most pious, austere, spiritual sort of monastic in your family. pull this one out. I think might start a nice revolution.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, take recordings of that, or just tell us how it went by emailing us at contact@ravelpodcast.com. That's contact@ravelpodcast.com. Let us know how your Thanksgiving shocker went, and if it started a sort of spiritual revolution in your family, or if you have any questions or comments about this episode, you can email those to contact@ravelpodcast.com. Anything else, Chris?
No, I'll just say to everyone, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Know the holidays can be hard for people for a variety of reasons, but I pray that the Lord shows you something, reveals just what is truly magnificent about him and about your lives, that your hearts are just filled with gratitude and thanksgiving this year. You enjoy some family, some turkey, and then the rest is downhill from there as Christmas rolls in. Sorry about it, but that's how it goes. So
yeah, it's that time of year again, folks, and we're gonna try our best to get back on track with our regularly scheduled programming. We know better now than to start making promises, but just so you know, we are aware we're trying to get things back on track. And yeah, make sure to follow us on all the social medias. I know it's not super active now, but we've got some plans for that coming up. And if you want to get involved in the podcast, just send us an email. We would love to bring on some producers who are interested in getting involved with the podcast. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Ravel, everyone. But before we go, Chris, do you have any last words?
Godspeed.
Thanks for listening to Ravel. To learn more about who we are, what we believe, or how to support this ministry, visit our website at ravelpodcast.com. If you have a question you would like answered on the show, or to let us know how we're doing, email us at contact@ravelpodcast.com. This project is made possible by the prayers and generosity of listeners just like you.